August 16th meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority. May we have the roll call, please?
Authority Member Devine.
Here.
Friedman.
Here.
Garpetian. Kelly.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Parazian.
Here.
Chair Sinanian.
Here. Next item, please.
The agenda for August 16, 2016 regular meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority was posted on Thursday, August 11, 2016 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Next.
Oral communications. There are no cards submitted.
Very well. Next.
6A, Director of Community Development regarding annual submission of Section 8 Management Assessment Program, SEMAP, self-certification for fiscal year 2015-2016. One motion approving annual submission of Section 8 Management Assessment Program, SEMAP, self-certification for fiscal year 2015-16 to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Who's going to do that?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
This is the time of year where we do the annual CMAP. Beginning in the late 1990s, HUD had required that those housing agencies, public housing agencies, provide this self-assessment, and particularly for the benefit of those who are considered high performers, as the Glendale Housing Authority is. We are pleased and proud to present this information to you. As you see in your staff report, for an agency such as ourselves, the maximum points that we can score is 135. We anticipate the full 135. If you're wondering, the other 10 are a function of the types of agencies that have family support services. Typically, those also have the community housing development organizations, of which we are not one, so we can't get the full 145. But again, 135 is the maximum. That's what we score, and that will sustain us as a high-performing agency. If you have any specific questions about the CMAP, it's very similar to what we've done in the past, but Peter Zovac and his team are here should you have any of those questions.
Okay. So what does it take to get the 145?
We likely would have to open up, we would have to become what they call a CHODO, which would be the Community Housing Development Organization. Is that the right acronym? What's the right acronym? The alphabet soup of... we would have to provide FSS, Family Support Services, which we don't have that organization.
Sounds ominous, though. Chodo?
It does
Chodo?
sound ominous, yes.
We are a Chodo. Yeah.
We would need to become said Chodo.
Right.
There are only a few housing authorities that have that type of program, and thus they have 10 more points available to them to be evaluated on. We traditionally have never had that, and don't expect HUD awarding that to us anytime soon.
Okay, with an acronym like that, I'm not surprised. But so this is self-assessment, self-certification, I'm sorry. And what happens to this? Do we send this to the HUD?
It goes back to HUD. They look at it, they evaluate it, they make sure that indeed it complies with all of their audit standards.
Okay.
Heretofore, we have been in compliance with those standards. We will continue to be considered a high-performing agency that allows and confers other smaller types of benefits, most notably that the staff that you see here is able to operate forthwith and not have to continually refer back to HUD either locally or back in D.C. for any number of permissions and requirements that other agencies that are not determined to be high-performing.
I see. This is not that annual communication that we make to HUD where we tell them what's going on with our Section 8 program, or is it?
We do another housing plan, but this is the self-assessment, so very similar but slightly different.
Okay. And we had this conversation a couple of years ago. We are making sure that our communications to HUD, I know it may seem redundant to some, point out our great need for additional Section 8 funding and vouchers and so on and so forth.
Yes, sir. We continue to seek out new vouchers. As you recall, the Housing Authority is very proud that veterans vouchers, VASH vouchers, as they're termed by another acronym, we were allotted, I believe, 10 more of those. And those that speaks to our proactiveness, the fact that unlike many other organizations across the country, housing authorities, we are very active in creating new affordable housing. And to the extent that HUD likes to work with people that like to do the work of HUD, they look at Glendale as a leader and are willing to invest in us and have us lead that charge. So we've been very happy with getting those vouchers.
Okay. And I don't see our legislative liaison here, but maybe someone other than Christine can answer this question. A couple of years ago, may have been 3 at this point already, Congressman Schiff added specific language in the omnibus spending bill in which he required HUD every year to assess and reevaluate the status of portable vouchers, and to the extent that makes no sense for them to be portable, to transfer them and make them local vouchers. And from what I know, as of I think last year when I was last in Congressman Schiff's office in D.C. and we talked about this, that hadn't happened. HUD has chosen to ignore this, although I don't understand how the federal department chooses to ignore specific language in a spending bill. But I want to get some kind of a status update on that, what's going on.
Most certainly. Now, I can actually, Peter, why don't you come on it, because I have an email from Christine based on that question that you posed, and she had been discussing this with Peter earlier today.
So you're correct. About 3 years ago, we were working very closely with Congressman Schiff in adding some language to the appropriations bill. He had made a proposal at one of the budget hearings sessions, and at that hearing, the Speaker of the committee asked that the Congressman withdraw that appropriation in exchange for some type of acknowledgement by the Speaker that there is an issue there, and to work with HUD and the rest of the budget group in trying to address that rather than work it into the language of the bill. So that was never made it into the record. Eventually, subsequently after that, HUD then announced that annually they have a series of awards that they will allow agencies to apply to for additional funding to help pay for some operational costs where HUD's existing formula does not maybe help. Mm-hmm. And so it's a series of different activities. After that budget hearing, in which the Congressman very strongly lobbied for some relief on portability administrative fees, HUD added another category to that special awards called agencies with a heavy burden of ports. Mm-hmm. So since then, we have been applying annually when they announce that there's money available, and we have been receiving money from that fund. Just about 2 weeks ago, we received $101,000.
Okay, so that
is HUD's attempt to try and make us whole on the whole issue of agencies with a heavy portfolio.
Does it make us whole?
No, we did a quick calculation not too long ago. I think we came up with about $180,000 short.
Okay.
So typically almost $300,000, and HUD's given us about $100,000.
Okay.
But we continue to work with HUD and other agencies across the country that have a high portfolio.
And we do, right? Because we're half of our vouchers are portables.
Yeah, actually, we just got approached by a housing agency in Colorado who has a very similar issue, I guess it's call it, or constraint. And they had noted to us that they had heard from HUD that we had been advocating for some changes to this, so they approached us about what our previous positions have been in lobbying efforts, and they're now looking at trying to establish a nationwide group of housing authorities with high ports to go back to HUD and try and bring this back.
Bring us back.
Bring this issue back before HUD and try to address it at 100%.
Right, make the portables local. I mean, because this way it seems like they're double paying for the same service. Because the 10% or however much it is that we lose to the home jurisdiction, they still get their money. So that gets cut out of our budget. But then they're trying to make us whole by giving us additional money. Right. It's very wasteful if you think about it.
HUD is actually spending additional money to help address it rather than addressing it with the original allocation.
But why do the logical thing? Why just cut out the middleman? Any other questions?
I have a question. How do we make up for that deficiency, that $100,000 deficiency that you said?
We work at a pace that we have efficiency. We realize some efficiencies by having such a large voucher size. So a lot of our housing advisors are working at a caseload level that's much higher than other housing authorities. And over the years, we've become efficient at administering the port program. And every year, we tend to, the history has been, as of the last 10 or so years, we've been saving money in our administrative costs and actually banking that every year. So we've been very efficient. But even though we've been able to bank our administrative fees, we still go back to HUD and say we should earn more than this.
Right, we need this. Second question. This is a pretty formidable list of indicators, 14, and pretty in-depth questions. How many staff members do we have that actually do this scoring for us, or asking the questions, bringing it?
These categories really take over the whole team. So the bulk of these indicators, the work is done by the housing advisors, the ones that meet with the clients themselves. Mm-hmm. We also have 2 housing inspectors that there are components here with regards to inspections. There's administrators that come into play with regards to administrative programming and rules and regulations. Our staffing is just about at 20 people for the Section 8 side.
Okay, and we have how many in Section 8 housing? 3.
We have about 3,000 on average, 3,000, about 1,596 of Glendale vouchers and about this equal number of portables.
So about 20 people are handling 3,500 cases.
Yes, approximately 3,000 cases.
And we're achieving a very high performance. So you're a very high-performing department, I would think.
The staff has been very good in that category, yes.
Good for you. Okay.
So I have a
question, Mr. Chairman. Yes, for Mr. Zovek. My question is, how many consecutive years has Glendale Housing Authority been a high-performing designate?
This would, Joseph Rodarte is telling me this would be the 18th year.
And since you've been deputy director, have we ever been anything but high performer?
Not during my tenure, no.
Right. Does HUD have yourself, Mr. Fortney, and Mr. Rodarte train other agencies?
No, but they when there are questions and things, operational issues that pop up with other agencies, sometimes they refer them over to us. So we'll receive calls where they've told us HUD has asked them to contact us.
The last question is, has HUD ever named you personally Deputy Director of the Year? Do they have such a thing?
No, unfortunately, no. No, that didn't get into the language of the bill either.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, I have a follow-up questions. So on the average, I know it's different numbers, different years, but on the average, how many people leave the Section 8 program every year?
Yeah, it could be anywhere from 15 to 20.
So
there is some
15
turnover.
to 20 people.
Yeah.
And of those, is it the equal split between the locals and the portables?
Probably, it is.
The portables will lose for good, right?
Yes, the portables go, but once someone leaves the program and they're a port voucher, they go back to the original agency.
Right. And the locals don't necessarily get replaced if there's no funding. Is that how it works? I know it's not as simple as, okay, someone, let's say, God forbid, passed away and there's a voucher up in the air that goes to the next person. Is that how it works, or does HUD have the option of not renewing that voucher?
For a while, they had the option of not renewing.
Yeah, I remember that.
They required that we freeze our waiting list.
Right.
Over the last few years, that freeze has thawed a little bit, and they've allowed us some ability to start to pull people off the waiting list. Okay. They're pulled in very small numbers, maybe no more than 10 at a time.
Okay.
Maybe once or twice a year, and that's about it. But we do have the ability now of once one or a group of people are now leaving the program on the voucher side, we're able to look at our budget authority. We're able to look at what our current costs per unit are and try and project how much money do we have now to be able to assist how many tenants if we enroll them into the program. So it might be that 6 people leave the program, but once you start to look at your current costs and money available, you might be able to only fill 3. So it's not a one-for-one all the time. So there are a lot of factors that come into play when we might be able to pull people.
Given, you do that assessment and you can only fill 3 for those 5 or 6, do you then turn to the HUD and say, by the way, we're able to fill 3 spots, but we need additional funding to to replace the other 3, or no? Did you stop there?
No, they won't give you additional funding. They will not allow you to lease up to some number that takes you over their budget authority. They're very strict about that. So what we'll do is we'll assess and say we have the ability to take on 3 new people, and we'll just pull them from the list. It doesn't necessarily require any more HUD approval to do that.
So with the exception of the 2014-15 165 vouchers that we received, and with the exception of these WASH, what do you call them? The ones that we received this year?
The new VASH vouchers?
The VASH vouchers. We've been losing, according to your explanation, we must be losing numbers, right, in terms of vouchers?
We were losing enrollment numbers. We've always had 1596 vouchers, but our funding might only support, in previous years,
well, that's
1480.
What I mean. Bottom line, people who are actually placed in Section 8, that number has to be diminishing, unless you have an event like the WASH or the 165 vouchers. Right?
We've had those numbers go down, our enrollment numbers. We've seen over the last few years our numbers slowly start to go up. But we are not still fully funded at 1596.
Okay, we're not. And how short are we of that number?
We're probably at about 1530.
So about 69.
I'm sorry, 1560, meaning we
30 short.
Have an allocation slots of 30 more, but not necessarily funding for those 30 more.
Okay.
So 30 sit unused.
So we keep asking. We ask for that money, right? I mean, they won't
We
give it
ask on
to
a
us.
regular basis.
Yeah, but they.
As well as other agencies are asking.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Okay. So, all right. Yes, Ms. Perez.
I wanted to make a comment and a question. First of all, thank you and your staff for just being so many years a high performer, and we were proud of you. We are proud of you, Peter. Then, for the 14th indicator, it's been 2 years. We don't have any more. We're not getting any points for the indicator number 14. Are we going to still keep that or just eliminate it?
No, it's still a requirement, so it's just not applicable. But we'll continue to have it every year when we have to do the assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one more question? Peter, this might be a question better for next week. I'm wondering if 202 buildings are a thing of the past, completely history, and if they're seen as a form of rent stabilization.
Well, the HUD 202 buildings are senior buildings in which a majority of the costs are financed by HUD. And what they do is they allocate each unit to be a Section 8 project-based voucher. So it's a Section 8 unit that HUD controls, not the city. So it's very affordable in terms of rent and an ideal program. They've not been funding that at any level over the last 4 years that agencies are able to apply for new HUD 202 projects.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And we have a card. Hilda Albers? Hilda?
I wanted to say I have nothing to do with the HUD.
Okay, we'll take you.
I wanted to say about equal rent control, the affordable rent
Okay,
control.
why don't we take you at a different time?
what-
Yeah, thank you. It was just marked here as 6A, so thank you. Unless my colleagues have other questions, we can move on to the next item on the agenda.
Was there a motion approving?
Well, I'd like to hear the speaker before we.
She's not speaking on the item.
Well, the item. Oh, it's a motion. Who'd like to move the item then?
So moved. I'll move the item.
Second.
Okay. May we have the roll call, please?
Authority members Devine,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Garpetian, Kelly,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Barazian,
Yes.
Chair Sinanian.
Yes. Next item.
Next item would be authority member or staff comments, or if you'd like to reopen oral communications.
I'd like to reopen oral communications unless staff or authority members have anything to say. Okay, Ms. Albers, your chance now.
Can I say
Yes,
Yeah, please go ahead.
that?
please.
Just come up to the microphone.
All I'm
State your name and then
interested-
start speaking.
Okay.
How much time do you need? 3
1
minutes.
minute, no.
Okay.
All I want to say, thank you for me being here with you. And all I want affordable rent for their tenants, so which I have. They're very nice and they're very helpful, and I'm not this high. I saw today, for example, it's a car wash in Eagle Rock. I saw an apartment, 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, little pool, $1,850. That was too much. That's all I want to tell you. Okay,
thank you, Ms. Albers. If I understand correctly, Ms. Albers is a property owner, and she takes pride in the fact that she keeps her rents low. So we're very thankful for people like you.
We talked last time, I believe.
Yeah. So we're very thankful for people like you in Glendale, and I'm sure the individuals who are able to benefit from your generosity are very thankful as well. Thank you. Mike Mohel? Thank you. 3 minutes, Mr. Mohel.
The issue of rent control came up, the previous speaker, and the need for rent control. Again, why do we need rent control? Is it because the landlords are charging too much? Is the high cost of buildings? No. One of the major reasons the high cost of rent is that the landlords receive every month electric and water rates that go up, up, and up. And the cost of delivering of that service is beyond the cost of delivery. That money is being transferred from GWP to the general fund to pay for the outlandish, outrageous salaries and pensions of our CalPERS union workforce. Until this city decides to leave CalPERS and put all our city employees on Social Security and a 401k plan, there'll be more people like this lady who comes up, who talks about her property, but the people who come here who cry for rent control. Rent control. Rent control is because the landlord's being forced to pass on those costs. One of the major costs is the utility. And this city has no desire to curb it. What are we doing? What is this city doing to curb the electric and water rates? Nothing. All you keep doing is raising and raising it. Every year, people are seeing their electric and their water rates go up. This summer, electric rates go up. People have to choose between turning on their AC or food, turning on their AC or water. The cost of living in Glendale is out of control. And I feel sorry for the people who are on the low end of the totem pole, because this city council cares more about the union employees and their families and how they live than the people who have to pay the bills. You're going to be talking about a cost of living for the firefighters coming up. Why do they need to have a cost of living increase? Social Security people haven't had a cost of living increase. The money, the problems of the city is the cost of funding our union workforce. I'm not going to repeat myself every week, every month, every year until something is changed. Council members, remember, there are elections coming up. There's one in November for the 43rd Assembly District. See how Mrs. Friedman votes on that? Next year we have council elections and so forth. I hope the people in the viewing audience remember how you people vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohel. We have no new business. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Comments?
Yes. Comment, yes.
I have two comments. First, I've been contacted by a couple people who have read somewhere that Glendale may be the site for relocation of Syrian refugees. I don't know if that's true, but I would like to know if that is the case, what notice would Glendale get? I presume that these refugees would be getting some sort of federal vouchers, and I think we need to think ahead as to, and we're already dealing with a undersupply of apartments and affordable units, and could this be a problem if, the big if, that's what someone had read, or of course it's a possibility for any city to be the site of relocation, what effect that would have on the city housing supply and affordability. The other thing, I'd like to get an update on the selection and application process for our Century 21, what do we call it?
ACE 121.
ACE 121, the ACE 121 program. Just an update as to see where we are at with that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Najarian. No new business? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned, 3:30 p.m.